Okay, I'm recording.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jamie Carney. I am a community relations specialist for the Better Business Bureau, and we are so happy to have Jess Hennessey today. She's the Director of Digital Marketing for 3 Media Web, and she's going to be hosting our webinar on Google Analytics 101. So Jess, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so hi everybody. Hopefully you can see me okay. And as she said, I am Jess Hennessey. I work at 3 Media Web as the Director of Digital Marketing. I've been kind of on all sides of digital marketing, both from a web development standpoint, a business process standpoint, and then obviously now the digital marketing standpoint. So, this webinar today is really to give you the high-level overview of what Google Analytics can do for you and where you can go to get information that you're trying to find. So I'm not going to get into specific setups and stuff like that, but certainly at any point in time, if you want to let me know any questions, we can answer those at the end. All right, so today, we're going to basically cover a couple of areas. One is just what is Google Analytics, a little overview of the admin panel, and then what each section is being used for. And then at the end, if you have your own Google Analytics account set up or open in front of you, I'd love for you to kind of follow along and help you drive and get your own answers to these questions that I have listed here. All right, so let's talk about what Google Analytics is. It is a web analytics platform that tracks and reports on your web traffic. In order for it to run, it needs to have, you need to have a script on your website that, your web developer, or if you're, technical, you need to get that on your website, and it will track everybody's traffic or everybody's use of your website and record that in the Google Analytics database. The analytics panel, or the admin panel, is broken up into 3 sections. One is being the account, one is being properties, and one is being views. So the account is really, the main level username that owns the account. A property you can think of as a domain. So, in our case, 3 Media Web is a domain. And then you can have multiple views within your domain. So you might have one set up for different geographic areas. You might have different views set up for different business units, or you may just have a singular view, and that's totally fine. When we get into Google Analytics, if you go into the property and click on tracking info, tracking code, this is where you're going to find your tracking ID. So this is important as you're trying to interface with other kinds of platforms. If you want that data to filter back into your Google Analytics, usually you're going to need to have this ID, and it always starts with UA hyphen and then 6 digits, and then it'll be -1, -2, -3, depending on how many properties that you have. Okay, but this is where you find that code to give to whomever it is that you're working with. So Google Analytics here, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. That's not what I want to do. Sorry, present. So when you click into your view, you have all of these different settings, but I'm just going to focus on 2. One being goals, one being filters. Goals, to me, are the most important setting that you can have set up on your Google Analytics, and is probably the one that is most often overlooked or improperly set up. A goal is basically measures what you want your users to your website to accomplish on your website. So is it a form fill? Is it signing up for a newsletter? Is it filling out some kind of a form? So you really want to make sure that your goals are well defined. And obviously that is going to be closely aligned to whatever your business objectives are. So, you know, we can talk about these a little bit later or offline, but you need to make sure that you have your goals set up. The other one is filters. So filters help you block out what I'm calling undesirable visitors to your website. And this might be, you know, if you have a US-based website, you may not want to get traffic from India, Romania, Russia, whatever. Sometimes traffic that comes from those locations, or actually lots of other locations as well, is really just bot traffic or, you know, spam kind of traffic, and it really just disrupts how you're able to look at your data. The other way that you might want to use filters is to block out internal traffic. So if you have an office and your office network would have an IP address, you can filter out internal traffic so that if you have someone that's in sales or customer support and they're always, you know, directing people to your website or always on your website trying to get more information, you don't want that information or their behavior to actually impact who the end users are. So filters are something that you should always look into. Okay, so once you actually get into Google Analytics, there are basically 5 sections: real-time, audience, acquisition, behavior, and conversion. So we're going to go through each one of these and help you understand what information you can get out of each area. Okay, so real-time data. So that we're using the Purrington Post as our sample website that we're pretending that we're monitoring today. So real-time data allows you to see people that are actively on your site right now or within the last 30 minutes. So let's say you were having a particular campaign, you know, if you're a nonprofit and you're trying to, you know, you're running some kind of a, you know, telethon or something, and you want to see, well, how many people are coming to your website, you would go into the real-time area. So as you open up real-time, you'll see that there is an overview area, locations, traffic sources, content, events, and completion or conversions. These are your goal conversions. So those goals that we set up before, this is where you can go to really understand what is happening right at this very moment. So this is a sample of the overview panel. So in this particular case, there were 2 people that were on the website right at that very moment. You can see, you know, this is how many pages that they've been looking at. You can see which pages people are on, what locations they're from, any referral traffic, any keywords. So this is really good if you're, again, trying to see, well, I just sent out my email blast. Are people actually, you know, coming to the site, you know, for that? Audience. So audience is who is coming to your website. Are you actually bringing in the right people? So when you're looking at who is coming to your website, you can see demographics, geography, language, technology, and even their interests. And this can either validate what you think you know about your clients or users, or help inform new audience segments. So again, if we look at audience, we have, you know, all of these options here. This again is our overview of the audience page. So here you can choose what metric you want to look at the trend line for. You can choose your dates. You can choose, do you want to look at this hourly, daily, weekly, or monthly? And it gives you some really high level stats on what you're looking at. So when I look at the audience section, the areas that I am most interested in are going to be geo, which is going to be location and language. So am I actually pulling people from the locations that I expect to? This can be helpful when you're running ads, you know, to validate that your ads are running in the right locations. If you have a multilingual website or multilingual clientele, you'll be able to see, you know, what are their primary languages that are set up. Behavior is another one that I like to look at, and this is giving you an explanation of new users versus returning users. and how frequently, what their frequency is of coming back to your website. So in this particular case, we can see we had 804 users and 742 are new users. So that could be a good sign if you are, actively trying to grow new people coming to your website. But if you've been established for a long time, then all this kind of tells me is that people aren't coming back to your website. So you're great in getting people to you, but you're not great to keep them. Then the last one is this mobile area, which is what will tell you what your split between desktop, tablet, and mobile traffic is. So every industry is very different. There are some industries that are still heavily desktop based. There are other industries that are heavily mobile based. So you really need to understand what that mix is, because you want to make sure, obviously, if you have a primarily mobile usage, that your mobile website is, is set up to be to work for them in the best way. Acquisition. So this is probably where I spend the most of my time. So acquisition is telling you how people found your website, what channels did they use, what terms did they search for, what social networks, and it really helps you understand where you need to increase or decrease your marketing, depending on what your goals are. So here, as we look at the acquisition tab, I've opened up the all traffic, and in this case, we're on the channels report. So this is where I spend most of my time. So the channels here, we'll just kind of go over it briefly. Say organic search, direct, referral, social, paid, other. You might have email on here. You might have all sorts of other categories that are listed on here from your channels. And this breaks out, well, which users, what are the total users versus new users, how many sessions. But here you can actually tie it back to your goals. So you can say, all right, if you have goals of phone, form fill, and purchase, let's just say, then you can do a drop down here and say, all right, phone calls, and you can say, oh, well, all of my direct traffic drives most of my phone calls. So if you're trying to influence the number of phone calls you're getting, then you know that you have to invest in, direct marketing and trying to get your direct traffic up. The other area on this page that can be kind of helpful is this is what allows you to choose what your primary dimension is and or a secondary dimension. So in this case, it's broken up very high level at, as I said, organic, direct, referral, etc. But you could also go to source medium. So source and medium would give you Facebook paid campaigns, Facebook organic campaigns, Google PPC, Facebook PPC. So that allows you to get down into a little bit more granular data. Sometimes a use case might be, you might want to have your secondary, a secondary dimension be location, so you can understand, well, how do different countries respond to your organic search or email traffic. So really, this is where I think you need to, this is where I always spend the most amount of my time when I'm trying, again, to figure out what it is that I should be doing. Behavior. So this is looking at, when the user actually got to your website, what did they do while they were there? What pages did they look at? Again, what words did they search for? How did they interact with your site? If you're looking to improve your conversion, this is where you would look in this particular section. So acquisition is how did people get to you? Behavior is what did they do once they got there? So here, when I click on the behavior tab, you can see that there are lots of different options: behavior flow, site content, site speed, site search, events. And I have the events report opened up. So events are often closely tied to your goals. So you can have events fire for, PDF downloads, any kind of internal linking. Are they, engaging with your video? Are they engaging with, any type of interactive graphic that you have on your website, you can track that as an event. And then you can consequently turn some of those events into those goals. So in this particular case, I wanted to look at, well, what are the top events that are happening on my site? And I can see that in this particular case, phone calls are getting the most amount of events that are happening, then form fills, and then this happens to be a different kind of form fill. So events are, again, can be part of goal conversions, or they could be separate, but you would want to be able to track your events and see, well, what is it that people are doing? If you go into site content, this is where you're going to see which pages have the most traffic. You can look at different behavior flows. You can see where they started on the home page and then worked their way, through the site. And you can kind of watch people travel through your site. Conversions. So conversions, as we talked about before, conversions are kind of the same name as goal. So what goals were completed? Did they purchase anything? What channels contributed to the goal conversion? This is really when you're trying to understand how successful your website is. This is generally the area that you want to go into. And here, again, there are lots of different options. If you're an e-commerce site, this will appear. If you're not an e-commerce site, this little line here will not appear. But one of my favorite areas within the conversions report is this thing called top conversion paths. So when you think about goals or conversions, Google Analytics tracks the last touch as what the goal conversion channel was. So if I found your site via Google, then I came back from, I filled out a form, I came back through email, then I clicked on an ad and made a conversion. Up here in the acquisition section, or even up here in this goals section, it's going to say that I came through PPC. But if you look here in the conversion paths, you can see this one started as direct, then they went to referral, then they had their conversion. Or they started with paid, then they went direct, then they had a conversion. So before you start to say, and a lot of the ones that, or the one that I hear most often is, oh, I want to stop paid advertising, I'm not getting anything out of it, there's no ROI, because they're looking up at that acquisition report or even within Google Analytics, Google Ads. But I can see here, in this small sample that, well, gee, they came in through paid first, then they came in through direct. So, it might not be something that I necessarily want to get rid of right now. So that's really, you have to look at the entire path. Okay, so if you happen to have your own Google Analytics account open in front of you, or clients or whomever's, why don't you get that open, and I'll give you a moment to pull that up in front of you. Well, I pull up mine. Where did it go? All right, so what I would like you guys to do is try and go into your Google Analytics and look who's coming to your site. Where are they located? What is the mix of new versus returning users, and what is the mix of desktop versus mobile and tablet? So again, if you go into audience, then you're going to go into geo if you're trying to find where are they located, and then you're going to click on location. So let me pull this up in front of you too. Sorry, I should have had this open. Come on. Here. Use our data. Sorry. All right, we'll just use this one. All right, so I'm going to go to audience. I'm going to go to geo. I'm going to go to location. So I can see here over this time period, most of our traffic is coming from the United States. We have some traffic that is coming from India, which is not surprising. We have some contractors that work in India. So this would make sense to me. But if I started to see a whole bunch of traffic from, from maybe Russia or, somewhere in Africa, like that is generally not where our audience is or where our customers are. But we do work in Canada, we do work in the UK, some of Europe, and maybe South America. So on any given day, that might be okay. All right, so now let's look for a mix of new versus returning users. So if I come back into here, I come into behavior, and I look at new and returning. So I can see that in this, again, in this particular time frame, most of our users or people were returning users versus new users. This is really great for us. We like it when people are coming back to our site. That shows a lot of engagement. The other one that I'll show you, I didn't necessarily ask you, but is this one called frequency and recency. So this is really telling you how often they come. So how of the 15 sessions that have come here, how many times have they come here before? So if I have a lot of people, in this kind of a curve here, then I can say, okay, I have a really highly engaged people. If my bell curve looked more like this, then I would say, okay, you know what, they're coming once or twice, but then they're really not interested in what I have to say. I'm not giving them any reason to come back to my site. Then I could also look at recency, the days since their last session. So most of them basically are coming back within the same day. We have others that have been several days or long. So depending on, again, your industry and what it is you're trying to do, both of these count of sessions and days since last session, could be, mean more to you than perhaps it does even for me. And then let's look at desktop versus mobile traffic. So again, if I go down to mobile and I am going to click on overview, then I can see, again, in this particular time frame, we've only received desktop visitors. Nobody on a mobile device is coming to our site. And this doesn't really surprise me. We work primarily with B2B customers, and most people are still, even though they're at home, they're on their laptops or desktops at home. So this doesn't surprise me. But if you're an e-commerce site, I would expect this to probably be very different and very heavily mobile related as people are perhaps placing online orders. So if you look at these answers, do they align with what you expected? And these are really just questions for you to kind of think to yourself. Sorry if you can hear my dogs. Do they align with what you expect? Why or why not? Does it challenge who you think your users are? And those are questions that would make me want to dig in more and see what's happening. All right, so let's look at PPC, paid media, and is it driving you revenue? So if you go into acquisition, we didn't talk about this too much, but if you go into Google Ads campaigns, you should be able to see which ads are driving the most conversions, what keywords within your ads got the most clicks, which you're going to find here. How much money did you spend? You're going to find that up in campaigns. What is your cost per click? You'll also find that up here. And then, do you know what your cost per conversion is? Again, this is only going to be impactful if you actually have conversion set up properly. So we'll take a quick peek at that. Go into, oops, where I want to go. Go into ads, campaigns. Oh, sorry, I have a different account here. Oh, that's right. I won't get into this. So if you come into Google Campaigns, you'll be able to see, you would see all of your campaigns listed here. You would see your cost per click, which is a major measure that you would want to be tracking for your Google Ads. You'd be able to see how many people's coming through. If you have your conversions, you'll be able to calculate, well, my total cost was this. So if I had a total cost of $100 and I had 10 goal completions, then I would know that my cost per conversion was $10. If I wanted to look at my keywords, you would come here. Again, this particular account I chose does not have ads set up. What were some of the other questions? Cost per click we talked about already. We talked about where we would find all of our total ad spend. So when you look at this, this is really when you want to, when you're looking at cost per click or cost per conversion, which is CPV, is that too high? So what you want to do is really look at, you know, how does this compare to the rest of your marketing efforts? If you're doing, you know, direct mail campaigns and you're spending $1,000 on sending out direct mail and that drove, you know, X dollars of revenue, how does that compare to your paid ads? Is one better than the other? Different industries do have different standards for cost per click and cost per conversion. You should be able to find those online by just doing a quick search. So if you look at what updates should you make to your account. So here, this is where you want to look in behavior and you want to look at which pages get the most views. So you're going to look here under all pages. Which is your most popular landing page? Here. What is the conversion rate for your highest pages? So we'll get back to that one on this one. And what are your top events? We talked about that also. So let's go back, see if this, excuse me, this one is set up. Right, so if I want to see what pages get the most traffic, so this, when you have just this backward slash here, this is your home page. So not surprising in this particular case, our home page got the most traffic. But then we have some articles here that were being, you know, second and third. So these are some blog posts. Here, I'll go back to conversion. Can I get the conversion rate? We didn't talk about, I failed to mention this concept called page value. And this has to do with your goal conversion. So when you say, well, every phone call is worth $100 to me. Every, you know, form fill is worth $50 to me. Google, if you enter those values in, Google will allocate those conversion dollars to the pages that led the user to your actual conversion. So if you were to look at conversion value, you would be able to see, excuse me, that, you know, okay, people that started at the homepage, you know, had a low conversion value because most people that start at the homepage don't really get to where we wanted. But gee, we know everybody that comes through this particular article, this one would have a higher page value, and this would tell you, well, gee, everybody that hits this particular article ends up converting, so let's try and push more people to that particular page. Then let's look at our landing pages. So if we come down to here. So again, we can see that our homepage was the most popular landing page, but beyond that, this particular article was our most popular landing page. So again, I would want to look at the landing pages compared to those goal values and what the goal conversions are, so that I could say, okay, everybody that comes in on this page, you know, is highly likely to buy. And what was the last one? Oh, events. Events. Do I have any events? Oh, there's no events, sorry. So if I had events, you would be able to see, you know, phone calls, form fills, different, you know, whatever events that I have set up. So you'd be able to track that. All right, and then I would want to know, how successful is your online marketing? So to get that, you want to go into your goals, and you would, if you click on goals, you'll be able to see goal URLs. So I know that there weren't any goals set up on this one because I've already come across that, but if you say gold URLs, and click here, you would see a list of what those URLs are. Let me see if I can get this one, show you right. Clicked the wrong one before. Here we go. So here I can see that, you know, this particular page here, we do a lot of work with ADA compliance. So this page drove the most gold conversions. So I know that this is one that actually drives a lot of revenue for us because a lot of people are coming to us and see us as a leader in this particular market. I can see the contact page. Accessibility is related to ADA. We have a new page called Quick Wins. So I can kind of track and see, okay, well, these are the pages that are driving the most. Maybe I need to drive more people to this page, or maybe I need to drive more people down to this page because this is really, you know, where I think, you know, the sweet spot is. If you have e-commerce, we do not have e-commerce on our site. So if you have e-commerce, you would be able to come into here and you would be able to see, you know, what your metrics are for e-commerce, but that is not our particular business. And then what is the most popular conversion path? So we'll come back to multi-channel funnels, top conversion paths. So you can see, like, look at these ones. This is a huge, so first they came direct, referral, direct, referral, direct, organic, direct. I can't even see, oh, this is unavailable. You know, direct again, some social networking, more direct, some more social, more direct. And then, you know, we had one person convert through all of that. So again, just because, you know, your acquisition up here might say that we don't have a lot of, we use phone calls. Oh, gee, you know, organic or paid isn't driving any phone calls. We know that those channels do drive down, you know, downstream conversion. So you don't want to just kind of cut stuff off just for the sake of cutting things off. All right, so I think now we can open it up to any kind of questions that somebody might have. And I guess I'll hand it back to you. Anybody else?
Hi. That was amazing. Thank you so much. So informative. Great.
Well, thank you. All right, and then I guess if nobody has any questions, you know, certainly the Better Business Bureau knows how to get in touch with me. Actually, I'll share my screen again and you can see, oops. You can see my contact info or how to reach out to me. You can follow me or connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with 3 Media Web on Facebook or Instagram. We're always, you know, here and able to help.
Great. Thank you so much, Jess.
You're very welcome.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.